Slash Dupe episode 8.
Hello and welcome to Slash Dupe, the mysterious movie pitching podcast with a twist. Each member of today's podcast has been given the same movie or TV title, some time to prepare, and has come to the table to pitch their own unique take on that title. We'll be hearing 2 pitches before the break and 1 afterwards. After the break, we'll be hearing a special pitch from the Dupe. The Dupe is the one person at the table who has not been given the title in advance and will have to improvise their idea at the end of the show, following everybody else's. Our Dupe today is Ryan. How are you feeling about being the Dupe, Ryan?
Thanks, Sean. I'm very excited as per usual. I can't wait to get in and start pitching.
Lovely, yeah, neither can I. Welcome to Slash Dupe co-host and regular Dan. Without giving anything away, Dan, how are you feeling about today's title?
I definitely can't give anything away. That's the best bit about this one. I'm great. I'm feeling great.
Is that because you don't have anything to give away, or...?
Who knows with me? Hey.
And our guest today is Rohan. Welcome, Rohan. How are you feeling about your chances today?
Pretty good. I feel like I've been doing my homework as far as kind of listening to previous episodes and trying to steer away from retreading old ground. So yeah,
that makes one of us.
Quietly confident.
Yeah, because Rohan, you actually commented after we released our first episode, Bob Disposal. You actually gave us your own pitch for Bob Disposal, your own idea. Now we'll talk about that at the end of the episode because I don't want to confuse basically me conflating the 2 ideas because we have a different title today. But we were really humbled and honoured and privileged that you would that we were able to spark something off in someone else's imagination. So there is
definitely some thematic overlap. I would say. I think if I were to start making movies, there would definitely be similar.
Okay.
The one thing I'll say.
At the end when we go through Bob Disposal as well, maybe we can match them up.
You'll spot the you'll spot my common tropes. That's for sure.
Yeah. And we haven't talked about who's going to go first either. So Rohan, you were saying beforehand you were easy. Dan, do you have a preference?
I mean, I don't mind either way, but we should let our guest go first, shouldn't we?
Okay.
I'm happy to kick things off. Yeah.
All right.
Just gives me 20 more minutes to work out what the hell I'm going to say.
Well, before that, I just want to introduce myself. I'm Sean, your peerless moderator, and at the end of the episode, I shall be selecting a winning idea to go through to the next heat. What happens with the winning ideas at the end of the season? You'll have to wait until the halfway point of today's episode to find out.
So I've been telling a few friends and stuff that I'm doing this recording this Saturday, getting myself all excited for it, and they all ask me the same thing when I tell them the title, which is they say, Sean, what is a slash dupe? And I say, that's weird, because Sean's not my name. But I'll make sure I ask him when I'm on.
Well, I'm glad you asked, Rohan. A slash dupe, and of course, as we all know, nobody actually asks you that. It's just a gag because everybody knows what a slash dupe is. They all know about Slash Dupe, the podcast already.
Of course. Yeah.
But just in case there's the 1 or 2 newcomers that don't know about Slash Dupe, a slash dupe is a rough early version of a film used in post-production. Essentially, it's an unfinished foundation of what a finished film can become, which is what we aspire to here on Slash Dupe. We aspire to give you...
An unfinished product.
Yes, but just the echoes of what a finished product would come out of that. You know, what would come out of that. So we'll at least bring you that today. That's our promise here at Slash Dupe. But what is our Slash Dupe today? Well, I don't know. Are you ready? Are you ready to hear the title for today's episode? It is Fence. Today's title is a single title. It's the word fence. Rohan, I would love to hear your idea for Fence.
Cool. So, Fence. So whenever I'm listening to these episodes, I always find I get an immediate idea. As soon as the title's announced, I often miss the first pitch because I'm too busy thinking about my own genius. So of course, when I get the email for this week and I see the movie title, I had just 3 days of nothing. I'm like, Fence? The fuck do I do with Fence? And there's all this kind of obvious imagery that's conjured up. You start thinking about, all right, you could do something super serious and meaningful about, people being divided by boundaries and stuff like that. And I thought, that just ain't me. So I decided to go a little bit left of field. So I'm going to sort of read from the wonderful dictionary of Google. for an alternate definition of fence. So, verb, informal, to buy or sell stolen goods. So, my idea is that in a heist movie, you always see the build-up in the story of these guys, these super criminals, and how they obtain something super valuable, whether it's artwork, gemstones, the Ocean's 11 type thing. But you never get to see the other side of it, which is, hey, you got to get rid of that, or otherwise you've just got a really valuable painting kicking around your living room. So I was thinking, could you have a heist movie in reverse, where instead of the goal being to obtain something, the goal is to get rid of it? And even more than that, what if these people have literally no criminal experience whatsoever? So the setup I'm thinking of, someone buys a house. This guy, he's looking for a new start maybe, or it's just somewhere to move, somewhere to live. And he wants a bit of a fixer-upper, so he moves in and he's doing some renovations. Now, unbeknownst to him, this house he's purchased was owned by some super thief, some globe-trotting, world-renowned thief who over his years, stole millions of dollars of artwork or things, something like that. And whilst he's doing renovations, he stumbles across this cache of stolen, incredibly valuable artwork, like real top-level stuff, millions and millions of dollars worth. And rather than sort of doing what any of us sensible, honest people would do and reporting it to the police, or at the very least the real estate agent you bought the house off, he somehow arrives at the conclusion that this is his chance. And what he is going to do is, despite having no connections in the art world, let alone the underworld of selling stolen art, that's exactly what he's going to do. He's going to fence this artwork, make millions, and then just kick back and live a life of luxury for the rest of his days. I feel like he definitely needs to involve friends. So there's going to be a crew involved here, because, you can't do these sort of things alone. And definitely that sort of bumbling incompetence kind of thing. Like, I've got pictures of them going to an art auction and really conspicuously asking people about, how would someone even try to sell stolen artwork? I mean, I'm just interested, curious.
For a friend,
Yeah, and definitely getting in way over their head when they have that sort of crystallizing moment of, no, this is enough money that someone would literally kill us for it. But by that point, they're just committed. I definitely like the idea of them accidentally promising to sell the entire collection to more than one kingpin or kind of underworld, figure, and then they have to sort of play them off against each other. And I do like the idea of them being successful in some way. I don't want the whole thing necessarily to go completely tits up, because I think there's a certain, for me, there's a certain comedy in people succeeding in spite of their obvious incompetence. Just that, it's almost like the Mr. Bean factor of like, nothing in his life should work, but somehow it all comes up gravy. So I definitely like that idea. I haven't really thought so much about the makeup of the group. I think you could have a lot of fun with that as far as the characters involved. And
so in terms of style, are we going Mr. Bean style? So less sort of Lock, Stock, Two Smoking Barrels style, and more sort of like the bumbling sort of comedy side of things.
The way I phrased it when I was discussing this with my fiance was, think Guy Ritchie meets Will Ferrell. So
what a meeting that would be.
Yeah, I mean, make no sense whatsoever, but definitely elements of that kind of the Lock, Stock and Snatch style, that like a gritty kind of feel to it, but with that sort of absurd edge to it, where everyone
and characters that don't fit in with that gritty style.
Definitely,
so like they're normal people.
Everyone in that movie is taking themselves seriously, despite there literally being no reason to. I definitely like the idea of these criminals that they're selling them to be absolute dead set terrifying figures, like proper people that you would not
real
fuck
brutal
with.
Characters.
Yeah, but I also like the idea of that kind of straight man in a ludicrous situation. Like I always come back to like Mark Strong when you see him in a comedic role, because he's such a hard ass kind of guy, and then it's the situation that provides the comedy more than necessarily the hilarious dialogue all the time. So definitely a lot of situational comedy is kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah. And so they're buying this house off of like a super thief, right? So what kind of what price range is that?
Yeah,
what kind of people
Riviera?
are we on?
Is it like this penthouse? What's what sort of? Because that's what I'm
because
imagining.
that creates the person that's buying, the people that we're looking at, right?
I'm thinking it's an accidental kind of thing, like it's almost a safe house. So not necessarily where the thief lived. It just happened to be a property that he owned, and he was using it as a stash for this stuff when he suddenly dropped dead.
Right.
What about like the safe house is, so like let's say the master criminal gets caught, and they go to jail, and then all of their not possessions, but like all of their capitals, like their houses,
all their property.
The property gets like sold to the state,
seized,
and then the state gets seized, and then the state sell it off, and that's where this guy is like, oh, I know, I'll get a fixer upper from auction, and
Nice.
that's how he gets the house, and then obviously he said
So
discovers
how about this?
like, the
How about
secret
this
thing.
master thief who? Listen, I don't know if you agree with this, Rohan, but I'm going to say it's Helen Mirren. All right, I'm just going to go.
Why not?
Right?
Why not?
Does that work for you? Because that's what I'm thinking.
Absolutely. I think
Right?
I hadn't even thought of the master thief being involved, because I'm thinking the setup for me is that he's out of the picture, or he or she is out of the picture. So we're saying that they've like faked their death.
Yeah, that's exactly. That's what I was thinking. So they fake their death, and then because the only way that these people can succeed, if they're bumbling and you want to see them winning
So
until they lose, right?
I think
Ryan
that's
looks
the
like he's
challenge.
having Ryan looks like he's having an aneurysm.
No, I think I've just got the 200 IQ play on this, right? So as we said, this person, maybe the master thief couldn't actually move this stuff because it was so hot. So they fake, as you said, they fake it or they get arrested, whatever, that these bumbling idiots can make it look like can
their
be
stuff
fencing it
forward,
off, but they're actually they're fencing it to people that they're gonna then get it from, or something like that. And like they're using
That's
these.
how they get away with it, because they got an effective guardian angel.
Yes.
Kind of like pulling them out
running
of the
interference. Like
And then at the end, he pulls the master con, right? Or she. Helen Mirren, she pulls the master con and takes the money from them.
Yeah, I
but
think
maybe leaves them something. Maybe not the house. Maybe they leave the house
just
in
enough to
flames.
cover expenses or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, exactly. Expenses. Yeah.
So one of the old housemates I had worked at a law firm, and when he was looking for a job, there's loads of jobs for like lawyers to work in the Cayman Islands for like very obvious reasons. So maybe what they do is they think about this and they're like, oh well, if we're going to start fencing stuff, we need an account, and they put all their money offshore in like the Cayman Islands, and then at the end of it, when they're like, I tried to withdraw it, this person doesn't exist, and it's been that master thief all along, like on the phone, like setting up the account for them and all that stuff, and it's actually just been the master. So they sell all this stuff.
Completely. I'm just imagining now like Helen Mirren doing like some really like bad impression of a Cayman Island banker.
Yeah.
Hey, maybe she is the real estate agent at the start that sells them the property, and she's just a smokescreen.
And you never-
what a turn.
And you don't
What
see
a
her again
turn.
until the end.
Exactly.
You just see all the interference
yeah.
she's been running.
So then what happens to the house? Because I want to know, like, if they succeed or not succeed based on how you feel like they should come out at the end, what happens to this property? That's the one thing I'm thinking of.
I kind of like the idea of it, like, and I don't know how we would even build up to this or execute this, but basically the house either blows up or burns down.
Right.
And you've got, because you know how like at the end of Ocean's 11, you've got that scene where they're standing around the fountain,
Yes.
and you've got the moody music's being played, and instead it's just these, 5 or 6 incompetent morons standing in front of their burning house, going like, the fuck just happened? Like,
Maybe it like
none of
burns
this was
away.
fun.
Maybe the house burns away and there's like a secret hatch in the floor that like they didn't
Yes.
discover the first time it was doing the
Yeah.
yeah.
renovations.
And then they
So,
just
like,
take one look at it and just go, nah.
Yeah.
Love
Not
it.
again.
Love it.
Yeah.
So these people, who are they? Like, because is it like a lads sort of 5 or 6
Yeah,
gents
sort
who
of Mad
are
Dog's tone or something.
Yeah.
You know?
I think that's
Or
where
is it-
that's where I initially went to. But I think
do you think like 2020 it's like he's got his ex-girlfriend involved, or it's a she again, or they got couples, they got their brother and his wife, or
I thought
do you know
I
what
thought
mean?
the lad bit was maybe a bit obvious. And then the other idea I had was you have like couples around for, multiple couples nights. So you have like so it's a couple who've bought this house, and to celebrate, their
that's
first day,
right,
or they're kicking off the renovations, they invite around,
Yeah.
a few of their friends. So you have like 2 or 3 couples involved. And then you can play into, really tense situations, and they're having an argument over just petty, mundane shit.
Like
Yeah.
they're going to be
You know-
murdered, but they're still arguing about like.
I'm
dishes.
lactose intolerant. Why the hell did you make cheese sandwiches for this heist? Do you know that kind of stuff?
They're sitting in a car or like a confined space, and it's you can just play the absolute childish fart joke of like
Yeah,
well,
for
they're
sure.
literally about to
I
be
think
murdered, and
they-
just having a go at it.
Yeah.
They
Three
should
married
also-
couples like all exploring like the different stages of their marriage as well, right? Like a couple
Yeah,
that just
yeah,
got
that would be a
together,
good
couple that have
angle.
been together a couple of years, it's just waning, and then
Yeah.
the old screws,
It should be
Yeah.
like, why aren't you going to pair up with those guys? Well, because they beat us in the last game night, and I don't trust them
Yeah.
anymore.
They're not a good
yeah.
bridge pair.
Yeah.
Yeah, they start
Like,
suspecting each other along the way that one of them's going to try and
that's
make off
great.
with all the money.
Yeah,
Like, they're in the housewarming. They're like, oh, this used to belong to a master thief. Could you imagine if there was some kind of, and like their arm goes through a wall and there's the artwork.
Yeah,
There's
there's the full cache of artwork. Yeah, just this like little top of a Rembrandt just pokes out. And it's just like, oh, hello.
You have to play on that for the posters, right? You have to have some sort of dinner party thing or something,
Oh, definitely.
But
yeah.
Should there be 11 of them? So like it's Ocean's 11, and then do you have like the heist montage? And there's explain the plan, but every time we see the bit of the plan, they go wrong. You sneak round the back, Barry, and then he gets his fingers trapped in the door, and we see it all fall
Definitely.
apart.
Like, at no point are they to appear even remotely competent at what they do.
Yeah.
It should definitely be people, succeeding in spite of what they're
they're
actually
trying.
able to do.
Yeah.
And like really dumb shit. Like one of them, the first thing they do is Google's how to sell stolen artwork. And stuff free. Like grabs a laptop, throws it out the window. It's like the fucking FBI will be on us for that, man. Like,
Well, they start watching heist movies to have ideas on how to do this, and like,
they come to the
they
conclusion.
can't be as cool as
It's like what we need is a really handsome man.
Yeah, exactly. They pick up on the wrong thing, so they all get suits and they all go to like flashy places to chat. Like they
spent
pick up
the
on all
first
the wrong
3
parts
months.
of a heist movie.
Those 3 months is just getting the outfit sorted. So, right now meanwhile, Helen Mirren's getting more and more frustrated in the background.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
The absolute
Would it be
wrong
one of
ending.
those films where you could go back and watch it, and Helen Mirren would actually be in the background of every single one of those scenes?
I love it. Love
And then,
it.
like-
In really bad disguises.
Yeah, and just far off enough that you like can't notice her. Like
Unless
if
you
you
were
focus
looking.
on it, but she's always, and then so one of those things on the internet, like 10 things you didn't know about Fence, and it's like that would be one of the things.
Helen Mirren is actually in every single shot.
Yeah.
I just had the idea of like the whole idea of them focusing on the wrong things. Like you have a situation because one of the gags I always loved in I think it was Ocean's 13 was Matt Damon with the nose, and it was just like a completely unnecessary prop. And I like the idea of them going into a situation and one of them deciding they have to use an accent, and like the person they're with just going, "Why are you using an accent?" He says, "So they don't know who I am." It's like they don't know who you are anyway.
you anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
So is this like a one and done? Like they walk off at the end. You said that the house burns down, and they're like, "Nah."
Yeah. So when I was discussing this with my fiance, I think she hit the nail on the head as far as part of like what the tone would be, which is the idea of the hangover. And I think there's, if you kind of inject elements of that in there, and I think from a sequel's point of view, absolutely, in that you would have one original movie that was praised for being at least an original idea, well executed, lots of laughs, and then you just have 2 or 3 absolutely atrocious sequels that just completely fail to recapture the the what it was that made the first one enjoyable. Because I think how do you have them get back? It would have to be so contrived for them to
it would
get
be like
back
a
into it.
reverse Fence. So you'd have like Fence,
So they're the buyers,
basically, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the second one.
Oh, they're the
Yeah.
buyers, and then they take on the Helen Mirren role. Because
Yes.
now they're experienced stolen art fencers.
Like a whole cul-de-sac. They pose as
Realtors.
the realtors exactly for a whole cul-de-sac and get the entire place involved.
Absolutely,
Like some awful suburban pyramid scheme.
And it just becomes an excuse to shoehorn really bad celebrity cameos in there.
Yes. Henry Rollins. Why am I thinking Henry Rollins? I just feel like he has to be in it, right?
Well, I think Vinnie Jones would have to make an appearance
Jones,
if basically just you get the cast of Snatch and try and shoehorn everyone from that movie in there somewhere.
Like
Yeah, but
Vincent
they're all
Castle
suburban.
as well.
Like,
Yeah,
like,
but
that's
they're
their
really
normal
boring
lives,
characters.
right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And like Stephen Graham has to be in the first one. There's something about like get Mark Strong, get Stephen Graham, get these actors that would normally, I don't know how you feel about this, but would normally play sort of dramatic roles and then put them in this absurd world.
Stick them in the thing. Yeah,
Absolutely, yeah. I think that would be half the charm of it, is that you look at the billing, you could almost have it so like the marketing completely missells what the movie is. Like have it you look at the billing, you're like, man, that's really serious business here. Then you sit down and within the first 20 minutes you're just like, okay, where are we going now? Like,
and that's the con in itself, right? So like the marketing is the con as well. It tricks you into watching this movie.
Literally everyone gets conned.
Yeah.
It'd play terribly at the test screenings.
Yeah. But you think but it will make a lot of money, right? They'll love it and they'll keep making them, right?
I think it'll be like it's almost your Fast and Furious style thing where it's critically panned but box office gold, and they just keep churning them out. It's like and then you get to Fenced 3 with the 3 in the E's. So I don't know how
both
you do 2.
Both of them.
You'd have them both in there. You'd have to have them both in there.
And then when they eventually get to Fence 33, they've got no idea what to do. And it just all becomes a bit of a mess. Yeah,
that's what it ends up being.
I feel like the third movie, they definitely have to go in space. Like they're trying to steal or shift stolen moon rocks, and they accidentally wind up becoming actual astronauts or something.
That's brilliant.
Lost the plot, and there's no original cast by then anyway. We've moved on
it's
3
just
or
people
4
who
generations.
look vaguely similar. Like
Helen Mirren's still in each shot, right?
yes, definitely. It's just even if it's just photos of her in the background.
They've just CGI'd her in.
Thanks for that, Rohan. That was a fantastic idea, and it was a brilliant starting point, and then also seemed to flesh itself out in a completely different dimension. So I'm really pleased with
Definitely wound up a lot stronger than I thought it was going to. So,
as long as you don't think it's moved too far away from what you initially liked about it.
I think we could legit sell that now. Yeah, I mean,
I think so too. Yeah.
If Sharknado got made, then why not Fence?
Why not Fence?
I love that energy.
Exactly.
I love that energy.
So, Dan, you've got a tall order to top that, and you haven't given us too much information about what you have for Fence.
Haven't given myself too much information about it. It's interesting, Rohan, that you said that you looked up in the dictionary for an alternative use of the word fence. But maybe it's because I'm from East London. But when I hear the word fence, that's the first definition of fence I think of. And so I was thinking, my initial idea was for like a Lock, Stock, Two Smoking Barrels kind of spin-off. And then I thought, you know what, that's just too... that for me, that my brain was just... Then I couldn't go any further. What you did with it was extraordinary. There's no way I could have gone any further. So I moved away from that. And I thought, Ryan's going to come up with an amazing pun, so I can't do any fencing things. So I thought, right, let's go for an acronym. And I spent quite a long time coming up with this one.
Ah, that is interesting.
So I've gone for, FENCE stands for First English Network for Crime Fighting Education. And it's going to be, of course, it's going to be another Netflix series because I love Netflix. Obviously, it's the next, it's cinema, really. It's what cinema is now. And so, in my mind, it's like English heroes. Mm-hmm. So it's not quite Umbrella Academy where they're all in one place. It's a story of disparate. So let's think Heroes meets X-Files. So each week we kind of have a spotlight on a new hero, which is what Heroes was going to be, wasn't it? We have to see a new hero almost every week. Mm. So you have like this is definitively English. So we see it around the regions of England as well. Mm-hmm. And so you get that sort of the difference of culture as we go through that. And initially it was going to be a kids kind of thing.
What's the tone? Sort of, yeah, what tone are we going here?
And so I explained this to my wife, and she was saying, I was like, this great idea, First English Network for Crime Fighting Education. So it's like a little bit like people get contacted like through the Matrix or whatever. They're on the internet, and someone tells them they've all got superpowers, and someone contacts them, and she's like, "Are you going to pitch a kids show where someone contacts them through the internet and tells them they're special?" And so I said, no, you're right.
Yeah.
It was probably do need to change
those are
that
the things
idea.
you only think about when you have children. I was like, that sounds like a great idea. What's wrong with that? Matrix crossed with
totally
Sky
fine.
High crossed with Harry
I mean,
Potter.
if you look at Overwatch,
But yeah.
the game, like Diva is like a 17-year-old who is in the game because she won like esports tournaments, and that would effectively be the same thing, right? She got pulled like contact out of that.
This could be. See, these people could prove themselves and then be contacted after they've proven themselves.
That's what I imagine. So the opening of each episode is either them discovering their power, like an origin moment, a moment of going nova, or them doing something that makes them noticeable using their superpower, whatever it might be. And some of them are like high level powers, and some of them are like smaller level powers, but still significant. They still make them meta-human, and maybe that's what they'd be called, meta-humans, rather than superheroes, because I don't really want it to go full superhero, if that makes any sense. Like, I like the idea with heroes where some of them had powers that were just a little bit extra, but not anything super special.
Yeah, because there's still, you don't want to get into that situation of like the Superman issue where the problem with Superman is that he can't be beaten. So
exactly. So you have to start hurting all his friends, and that's not fun.
Stakes.
Is everybody going to have some kind of superpower, or could you have like an average person that's better?
Almost
that maybe
Watchmen
like, so we've got the Batman version of things. So because it is for crime fighting education. So and maybe it's also people that are on the borderline. So the idea is that this person, whoever it is, on the end of the network, is reaching out to find these people that they will then train to, maybe because there's an area that's suffering from some kind of meta villain type thing.
Birmingham.
So who is this person reaching out to them? Is it, who is this bottle
that's the thing. I wondered whether we never find that out for quite a while. But I was thinking like Letitia Wright would, because of the whole Shuri thing, that we got this kind of but her power is that she actually lives inside a machine. So she is in a coma, or she's otherwise indisposed, sort of physically, and she has been, her subconscious has been sort of transferred into the internet.
She's kind of pulling the strings in the background as this sort of virtual presence.
Because she can't do anything, and maybe she's trying to help these people defeat the crime syndicate that put her down, and then we find there's more and more to it.
Do we have like an ongoing antagonist kind of overarching the whole series, or is it a different one kind of each episode, or is there a bit of both?
So like a Sylar type thing.
Yeah.
I guess to begin with, what we'd want to see is all these individual crimes being fought in different areas that don't seem to have any kind of connection.
And then you stitch them together later.
Much like the X-Files, where each one was about a different sort of new creepy thing, but eventually over time we saw them build up. And I think because we would be thinking about that right from the beginning of this series, you could see some of that link. If you knew what to look for, you could go back to episode 1 and absolutely see it. Yeah.
I like the idea of the regional, like moving around like the UK, because you could kind of play on that quite effectively. And I mean, when was the last time we had a superhero, with a Leeds accent or something?
Exactly.
I mean, Constantine was supposed to have a thick Liverpudlian accent, doesn't he? And that has not been portrayed at all in any of the renditions of it.
I'm glad that Keanu Reeves didn't try that. Yeah, exactly.
It's like the American audience just hitting subtitles on straight away.
But from that was a real big seller for me, because not only is it location driven, so that we get to see all that, but you could even film it, sort of DOP style would be different. So you'd have sort of different lighting and different filters and stuff on it, so that it would be, and maybe like filmed in a different way. One is filmed almost all handheld, like it's on a camera, like it's like, and then another one that is super slick, because maybe it's in a super slick area of the UK. Do you know what I mean? That kind of thing.
It almost gives you enough license to be quite tonally different between episodes as well. Which I think is always interesting when you watch. I go back to what was the series, Love, Sex and Robots?
Oh, brilliant.
It was on Netflix, where, I mean, obviously the reason that was so different is that each one was literally a different artist, but And even though they're completely disparate tales, there's something common kind of running through it, and you could be quite stylistically and tonally different from episode to episode, but still have the same kind of guts of what's going on.
Yeah.
And if you have, kind of smart screenwriters stitching it together.
Yeah, that's right. Have some good runners, and then because they're so different, it's effectively like having a different artist. The idea is that they're kind of like separate comic books, but you read them in the right order, but then if season one, they'll never come together. Like it is just like it's just a collection of seeing these crime fighters around the thing that just happen to be contacted by, Charlie of Charlie's Angels, effectively, isn't it? And so they do all of that, and then as we get to the end of season one, just the tick over is that there's a reveal that they might need to, like a save the cheerleader, save the world type thing at the end of season one. That's it. That's the end.
Yeah.
And then my dream was, as the seasons go by, they start to cross over, but only start, and that we get a full Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse moment where their art styles are somehow put together,
starting to bleed into each other
in each episode, depending on who's talking to who, or which point of view.
Would you consider almost having them not play in chronological order? To give yourself an opportunity to have aspects of one episode crop up in another, but they could be in like quite disparate time frames, and then it's over time you start to converge them together into a single timeline.
That's great, because that definitely leads into like the comic book idea that you read X-Men 43 and then Silver Surfer 12 or whatever. And then they all...
exactly. Yeah,
it's a great idea.
And then you wind up with people saying, no, all right, so once the series comes to its end, they say, right, here's the real order to watch it in.
Yeah. I watched Star Wars in the Machete order recently. I don't know if I thought more people would know about this, but it's you take episode 4, A New Hope, and then you watch 5, Empire Strikes Back. After the reveal of Luke, I am your father, or No, I am your father.
Spoiler alert.
You then go back. So spoiler alert. So it machetes out 1, because apparently there's nothing in 1 that you require for the overall story of Star Wars. But then you go 2 and 3. So you go Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith. Because you see the rise of Anakin to Vader. And then you go and see Return of the Jedi. You see the final.
Do you literally stop mid-episode as well then?
You don't have to, so you can see till because it's right at the end of.
It is right. Your father is right at the end. Last 15 minutes.
There's still a little bit. There's still a little bit, right? There's a tiny little
falls into a car or something, and they drive away.
Falls into a hole.
A car. Yeah, a car. How many Star Wars have you watched?
It's a space car.
I mean, in Star Wars, it is a car.
Yeah.
I am now bought in that, right? Mm-hmm. So maybe the order is you have to watch the first 20 minutes of episode 3. Then the first 20 minutes of episode 7, and then go back. If we're being really super clever. Yeah.
Like those people in the MCU who pause it, or they'll watch the end credit sequence of Thor: The Dark World, but then they'll go back and watch Iron Man 2, and then they'll watch the end credit sequence of Thor 1. Yeah. It's just, it jumps all over the place.
It could just be just an Easter egg, gold mine. You could just bury so much in here. Just develop this rich lore that you never tell anyone about and rely on people to uncover it as they go.
Make it for themselves.
Yeah.
I would love to see Shane Meadows take this on. For the first episode, definitely. Because there's something about when David Yates took on... I think it's David Yates. David Yates took on Harry Potter. He brought this sort of... rural English sort of vibe to it. It's sort of the north of England. He shot it. Even the sort of photography was very much, and the sort of the way he shot it was very much like sort of the famous directors of British past, and sort of had almost this Ken Loach vibe. And I think to have Shane Meadows bring you this British superhero, or not superhero, sorry, but this British sort of superpowered sort of vibe would be something that I don't think I've seen before. I'm sure it exists, but I haven't actually seen that.
Well, it's also when we think about these metahumans, they're Watchmen style stuff. So some of them can just be crime fighters that have that have got themselves, or even like we could have a section that's a bit like The Boys, where they've got a pill or an injection that they can give themselves that makes them meta.
I remember the film Shoot 'Em Up with Clive Owen, but in that film he was a kid who was a marksman expert, and then because of that they took him into like the army, and then he went Black Ops and everything like that, and that was like his origin story. He's not some like super soldier, but he was just good with a gun. It could be something like that, like a kid who's like a clay pigeon shooter that's like, you know, whatever. Yeah, and if that works with sort of your Norfolk, that when we're in the Norfolk Broads and we've got that kind of thing going on, and so some are meta. So I think there's definitely got to be this idea that underneath there's some kind of conspiracy thing that's going on that's making these metahumans, or something overarching.
Yeah, they've got to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
And that each episode is, like, you're right, Sean, there should be like a series sort of runner, maybe sort of overarching plot person, but each episode needs to be directed and lit by a whole new team, like an audio edited by a whole new team. I mean, it might be expensive, but it's like effectively each one is a separate
like a pilot
show
like
in
a
itself.
different pilot for a different kind of show, but around metahumans.
Which also allows you in season 1 to do great analytics and work out which ones are working really well with the audience and which ones aren't, and then you drop the ones that aren't, so that season 2 becomes a little bit, you know, more cohesive, and then onwards and upwards.
I'm almost picturing, like, I don't know why this popped into my head, but like the Legend of Zelda games, every single one of them is a different entity unto itself in every single way. But it's pretty much the same story every time.
Yeah,
it's go out and kill the bad guy, but you would never accuse it of being the same game.
Yeah,
it's kind of rinse and
because
repeat.
it's got a different. You're right. It's got a different, not just an art style, but a whole different sort of vibe. Even though it hits the same markers as all the others. Yeah, that's absolutely great reference.
So I've got like a whole bunch of like younger British actresses that I thought would go in, but I don't know what powers they...
I was going to say, have you got the superpowers for them?
No, so I was thinking maybe you could come up with off the fly with some superpowers.
Whoa,
this
what a
depends on me
challenge.
knowing who the actors are. So hang on.
So I've got Florence Pugh.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. 100 times. Yes.
I mean, she's...
she, of course, her career will kick off like immediately. I mean, it's kicked off obviously, but it will kick off much more broadly after the release of Black Widow. So we want to grab her before that, right? While she's cheap.
Yeah. And also, people are already thinking that she's superhuman from that as well, which is really helpful, right?
Yeah, you've got Pryor there.
Super strength.
Yeah, and then like, you think she's super strength?
Because she's like,
lovely.
because she's
We'll
a
go
bit
with that.
unassuming, and I think that may be her like thing. You know, like gets chased down an alley, and then she just beats the shit out of some guys.
Is she like Jessica Jones strong though? So she like the thing I love about Jessica Jones is that she's super strong, but she's not super like resistant. So she punches something, it really hurts her.
Yeah.
And like she can jump really far, but she's not very good with the landing.
There has to be a
thing. So-
weakness.
She's really emotionally vulnerable. She's really, really strong, like Hulk-like, but she's simultaneously like Hulk and Bruce Banner. So she's like completely frail.
Mate, your boy from the Umbrella Academy is like that though, with the super strength.
Oh, really? I haven't seen Umbrella Academy.
Yeah.
Is that really how it is?
he's
you
really
should
like
be
that.
watching the Umbrella
I've
Academy.
heard good things about
You
season 2. Yeah, people are sort of saying, "Oh, it's brilliant." So maybe I'll go back and rewatch it.
Go watch season 1 because it's brilliant.
Yeah.
So my next person is Luke Newton, who's in like Bridgerton, Midsummer, and like he was in The Falling with Maisie Williams, who's going to come up in a minute as well. Yeah, Luke Newton.
His superpower could be super handsome.
He is super handsome.
God, he's like a little James Dean bad boy, isn't he?
Yeah, I'm feeling like something to do with, and this is totally ripping off an X-Man, but like something to do with fire.
It's got to be Flames. I'm seeing
either
him
resistance
and I'm
to it,
Flames.
or
I like, do you know what? I like that with Flames. Not that he can produce them, but that he's just resistant to them. I like that.
Yes. So he's like the firefighter, and he goes and saves people in firefights.
Yeah.
And that's what
We
he
could have a.
buildings.
Is it too soon to mention we could have like a Grenfell type thing, but then we could reflect
Shane
on
Meadows. I mean,
on the-
who could bring that better than him, right? Who could do that in an authentic way that isn't, that doesn't seem like it's taken advantage.
He can even have the ultimate irony that he's like from Glasgow or something, where it's always raining, so he never gets a chance to even rescue someone from a fire.
And I think, I thought he could because like he doesn't have an aversion to fire, so that's why he wants to be a firefighter. And then that's the sort of
He's just not afraid of fire. And then he finds that. Yeah.
I wonder whether on top of this, there's an opportunity to maybe, is this going too deep in the think, that we can address some of the big events of Britain over the last 20 years and address them through metahuman?
Well, I think
we're talking
helps
like
anchoring.
the IRA attacks and stuff like that. Like,
I love it.
But
I love it.
And if you go down that route of having the episodes happen out of chronological order,
Yeah.
it gives you an immediate way to anchor it to the time period without having to do any clumsy kind of exposition.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
in
Absolutely.
Superman Returns, I think Sean, you told me about this. In Superman Returns, there's a cut scene where he flies to the Twin Towers, and he sort of has this moment of like, if I was here, I could have stopped this. I think they cut that out for that sort of thing because it was, I guess, it hurt too many people. So that's, it is America as well. But that's maybe something with.
But I like we maybe don't address the exact like things that have happened, but they are reflections of the things that happened.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so we can see.
Yeah.
And maybe that maybe Grenfell had happened, and then there's another building that is burning, and he gets to do something about it, and then there's that.
I mean, that's
sort
what
of
science
payoff
fiction
from
does, isn't it? It allows you to examine sort of, past, present, and future of humanity through a sort of safe lens. So you can actually look at these difficult events in a way that is more palatable. So I think that's a fantastic idea, and sort of, jumping through time and using sort of. I remember I wasn't massively. I mean, I enjoyed Claire Foy a lot, but I wasn't massively into The Crown as a TV series. And a friend of mine was going, "Oh, it's just first of all it's lies, and second of all it's imperialist, and all sorts of stuff like that." And I thought, well, I tried to sell him on season 3 because I thought because what season 3 does specifically, and I would even say jump to it if you're interested, because that's what it does. It tackles markers in British history using the Queen as an anchor. So it's a sort of, and it's actually really, really done really sort of carefully, I think, and cleverly, and it moves it away from being about the royal family and becomes about something greater. So I think it can work. I really love that as an idea.
Yeah, and we can also we can address sort of the within the regional things. You can address sort of the way different people feel in the UK, or how they are treated in the UK, or how they treat others depending on where you are. And I think that's what it is. It's kind of all good comic books have always done that, like you say, throughout the years. So yeah, absolutely.
Who are the other actors, Dan?
So I've got Daniel Kaluuya.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what his superpower would be.
It depends if you want to. There are arguments 2 and 4 sort of utilising...
Or not superpower.
Yeah. Or not superpowered, yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah. Well, because also him and Michael Ward, like maybe they're like together. Maybe we don't have to do two. You don't have to do one person. Maybe there can be a pair. So I'll just throw a few of them out. I've
He's
got
the man
Daniel
in the
Kaluuya.
chair. He's because he's intelligent and he understands tech, but not to an insane degree. He's the guy who gets him to the fires and gets him. You'll need that, wouldn't you? He's the guy who gets him there, but always worries that maybe this time he's not going to be fireproof. Who knows how long these things last? Who knows how these things come about? So he's like a concerned friend, or even a potential love interest for him. Something like that.
And maybe their power is that they don't have they're two friends or something, but they don't have a power until they're together. So you don't really see that. Like they're only strong when they're together, and then we can also look at how.
Just about to say that.
It's a reverse Hancock. Yeah.
The old reverse Hancock.
That would.
Oh, wait, that's something else.
that sounds unnecessarily sexual. Yeah. And then I've got the not the obviouses, but I've got Maisie Williams and Millie Bobby Brown. And I've got Asa Butterfield. Is that how you pronounce it? Is it Asa?
Asa. I think.
Asa?
I would have said Asa, but I think they've heard it Asa. Yeah. Yeah, great choices.
So I've got like a lot of really sort of younger. I say younger because I'm older, but up and coming British. And I know I've done this a couple of times, but I really want to focus on the British nature because we've got a lot of American comics that go on, a lot of sort of and we don't see as many.
And
I do read
rather
some.
They do Americanise them, don't they? So like there are some. I mean, I would say probably the world's greatest. Arguably, happy to argue in the comments. The world's greatest comic book authors are British. But when they're co-opted into American stories or their work is adapted, it's adapted into American sort of palatable sort of remit, so rather than British. So yeah, I think it's a good chance to see that on screen.
Yeah. And it's sort of the heart. It's not like you have the 4-color superheroes, and then you have the American dark sort of anti-heroes. But these are like people in the middle. These are just people that are trying to get on, and they do good things because it's right to do, or because they feel right to, or maybe they don't do good things because they haven't been brought up, and they feel bad for not doing that and change their minds.
You could even play on the idea of someone who feels obliged to do good things because they have this gift, but they actually have no real motivation, and it's done out of a sense of sort of begrudging obligation, and they sort of quietly resent the people that they've helped for making them.
That's great.
I like the idea of them, because the issue I always have, not so much an issue, but the thing with superheroes is that you want them to be flawed because that's what makes them relatable. And it's kind of acknowledged that these are just regular people, and they're going to have some ugly feelings about themselves, and kind of just throw that all open, rather than trying to paint them as unassailable.
And I think with these sort of minor powers rather than major powers, they're always at risk. So there's always, it's not like they can walk away from a flight. So like a lot of the comics, and it's addressed in The Boys, isn't it? Where like superheroes can get knocked 10 blocks into a skyscraper and like get up again. But if these guys get hit by a car, that's them done. So they have to be careful. Now, he might not be able to get burnt by fire, but if the building collapses on him, he's done.
He's still crushed,
Yeah. So, and I think, and they're going to be fighting crimes that are normal crimes as well. Maybe not like super villainous yet in season 1.
Well, it comes down to that idea of, I remember seeing a quote ages back from George R.R. Martin about writing the Song of Ice and Fire books. And someone asked him about why do you kill so many of the characters? And he said, well, you're reading a book, and it's the same as you're watching a TV show, and you've got the plot armor around that character, and you never feel like they're at risk because they're the main character, and you want that threat to be real and apparent. He's like, so if I kill a few main characters, you know that no one's safe. And I think you kind of want that element of that in this show. Like, you might have an episode where at the end of it,
maybe this is a BBC drama, because they did that with Spooks, didn't they? My favourite thing about Spooks, it's an amazing series because no one was safe. And so it meant as soon as they went on even a vaguely, like, slightly perilous mission, you would genuinely wet yourself that these could be...
You got to have stakes. Like, there's got to be stakes in there. Yeah.
Especially when you're dealing with younger people, right? Sorry, Dan, go on.
Yeah. No. Go.
Well, especially when you're dealing with younger people, because their villains are much... They're both broader and smaller. So their villains are the socio-economic group that they're born into, right? Like the schools they go to, you know, they're not able to get to, there's less, for example, in Britain as well, there's less social mobility than places, for example, like China. People are there's still the echoes of the class system that's been warped and changed. So those are the villains, and the villains are there every day as youngsters as well. It's the minutiae, and their superpowers can almost be how you combat a bully at school. You don't knock his teeth out. The powers do something else. The powers are maybe as small as the anxiety of having to finish homework when you're dyslexic, but you haven't been diagnosed. Or, you know, if we're going small, you could do that. Yeah. And that could be a couple of episodes, as well as going broad with fighting fires and stuff like that.
Well, absolutely. And I think we see, and some of those episodes just end. So it doesn't always have to be death, but we see the end of that, and we never see that character again. And that's okay, because we've got a bigger story to tell.
Yeah, I think it's that kind of layered approach to, particularly if we're jumping around in time frames and we're jumping around geographically. It's not so much, whilst it is a character show in that the characters are important, but they're important for that episode and for that moment in time. But overall, it's very much about the themes, and the characters in the show are just facilitating that discussion about the themes.
Yeah.
Which is a great analogy for our lives, isn't it? We're all the protagonists of our own stories, but you take a step away and we're just a peripheral character in someone else's.
So we've heard two fantastic pitches, one from Rohan, one from Dan. And before we listen to the dupe, who's Ryan today? Before that, I'd like to just throw it to Dan to tell us what's going to happen to the winning idea I pick at the end of the episode.
So the winning idea at the end of the episode goes into a pot of 6. At the end of 6, we break that down to 1 via an adjudicator heat. At the end of the season, we take the winning 4, we add 2 wild cards that you, the audience, will vote for, and we turn that into the last 6, of which there can be only 1.
And we're also considering at this point, I mean, if we get any fantastic ideas from the audience, if you interact with our Facebook page, our Twitter and our Instagram @/dupe, our audience should vote on an idea that goes in as a wild card, maybe something we missed, maybe something that was robbed. But the final wild card to make it up to 6, that should be an audience idea. And that should be something that comes in from them onto our Twitter, Instagram, our Reddit, or our Facebook. And we will consider fleshing out that idea and putting that through as a wild card.
Because otherwise it's just Sean's greatest hits, isn't it?
Well, it's funny you say that, Rohan, because we'll talk about Bob Disposal later on. That's a contender for wild card. So so we'll discuss that later on. But before that,
2 in the running.
you do. Ryan, you're the dupe. I'd love to hear your idea for Fence.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. It's the first thing I thought of, obviously, very much as we all thought, like a Ray Donovan style show about a fence. Then the next thing I thought about was fencing, about that we could talk about that. Then the other idea I had was maybe something to do with people in like a suburban area, with the, like, overlooking each other's fences and being jealous of the sort of things that they thought. And then I came up with something that's completely right field, some might say.
Right field.
And I've gone for maybe so it would be a concentration camp escape film.
Oh, just going in there light, Ryan. Just going for the lighter subject matter.
All my other pictures have been relatively light and happy.
I mean, there was euthanasia in Bob
the one about euthanasia.
Well, look, the one about euthanasia won, so I think maybe that's the magic that I'm going to relive.
Okay, fair enough.
So the concentration camp would be called The Fence.
Okay.
And it's just when they're led into it, it's just rows upon rows upon rows of different fences that have been built. When people have tried to escape, like cutting them and stuff like that, they don't bother repairing it. They just build another fence around it, and then they build another one. So it's just this like row after row after row after row of all these different. You get metal fences, you get wooden ones, you get ones of like corrugated iron. So it's all of this like.
So it's more of a heightened reality concentration camp, a little bit science fiction-y rather than sort of, World War II.
We're not talking like the Great Escape style, actual nitty-gritty concentration camp.
I mean, you're right. It doesn't even have to sort of be. It could be on another planet. We're playing with toying with the ideas.
Now you've excited me.
Hey,
you know what to do. Just take your idea, put it on another planet. That's it. I'm in.
Just put it in space, man.
Put it in space.
In space.
I mean, it worked for my fence.
It worked for Fence 3. Yeah.
Fence 3 or Fence 33 was them in space. Yeah.
That has to be the compound, by the way. On the moon. Fence 33. Anyway,
definitely.
Sorry. Go on, Ryan.
They're in the same universe, confirmed.
Yeah, definitely. So just I think the idea of this, and I think, and everyone's sort of segregating their groups, and I think it needs to be quite a brutal film. I think I want it to be a female protagonist. She gets sent to this concentration camp, and it's sort of maybe like concentration camp, re-education camp. Like I don't know exactly what the antagonists are trying to do with the people in here.
So I can throw an idea at you there. So I'm not sure if you guys have read the series of books that Altered Carbon is based on.
Yeah, I read the first one and the second one. Yeah.
So in the second, you'll probably pick up on this. In the second book, they're on a planet which is basically in the middle of a corporate war. And essentially what you've got is huge mega corporations fighting a full-blown planetary war over access to really valuable archaeological artifacts. And in the middle of this, you've got these displaced people, the residents of the planet, who are put into these camps And it's for no other reason than just to contain them away from the fighting.
Yeah. Just in the way, yeah.
Aesthetically, that's kind of what I'm picturing here. You've got people who were just living there, doing their thing, and they just got swept up in the middle of someone else's problem. And now they're kind of, they're displaced, and they are looking for a way back to whatever life they had before.
Exactly. They're not an antagonist to any kind of force. They're just in the way, you know?
Well, I think that definitely touches on something I sort of written. So I think that I maybe because it's so brutal or something, that's why this woman wants to escape. Maybe she has a reason to be out, like to do something, to a reason to escape or something like that. But I think she needs to start to realize it. I like the idea that she's an architect, so that's why she can figure out what the sort of differences between the fences are, the buildings, like how to get out,
Can find the weaknesses.
Exactly. And she works like that. I think maybe her first plan gets messed up. She gets caught. She gets like thrown in like solitary or whatever. And that's where she sort of comes up with this other idea. I like the idea she meets a cryptologist who will then help her with... I went to an escape room once, and they said the fastest time was by an architect and a cryptologist, because they just figured everything out really quickly, and they just like did it in 20 minutes.
They formed like a good partnership with their skill set.
Yeah. So I like the idea of that. And then the cryptologist helps her keep the plans hidden, and like, you know, all the different fences, this one needs this, you know, we need a tool to get this, this part is rotten because it was the first part to be built. So they get, you know, maybe talk to a geologist, and they're like, well, the rocks in this area are really soft, this is clay, this is whatever, space clay, and so it's weaker, so you can dig under in that one. So it's like getting this whole plan together. You know, there's definitely got to be a snitch. There's always a snitch.
Yeah. Could it even have been that she does unknowingly in her previous life as an architect designed some of the components of this camp, not knowing, and then she comes across something and goes, I know exactly where the weak points are in here. And it's like, how do you know? Because I designed it.
Yeah. And then that's some distrust, because then people are like, wait, you designed it? Like,
yeah,
you know.
It's your fault we're here.
So that's perfect. Like, well, I think that links into exactly what I was thinking while I was getting this flavor. It's like they are all working for this corporation, and instead of being retired, or instead of being fired, or instead of being, you know, if they're causing too much trouble, they get moved to this camp. So everybody in this camp is, maybe it's like a holding area. In the civil service, they have this thing, it's like a jobs pool, and everybody goes there when they shut down a department, and you get plucked out of the jobs pool, right? I'm ham-fisting the explanation a little bit, but that's basically essentially what it is. So all these people are in a jobs pool, like waiting to come out, and they all think they're going to go into the corporate thing.
I want it to be more oppressive than that, because that's too nice, man. That's like,
we want to keep you alive.
Yeah, and I think you know, the idea behind like the war on corporations, that's great, but I also I think people shouldn't, like, a jobs pool is like, well, I'll just go into a jobs pool and wait to get picked out. These are people who are like being brutalized by guards, they're being thrown in here, they're being oppressed. Like, it's not a happy place to be. That's why she wants to escape. She wants to get out. You know, she has to.
I suppose I was thinking more like it's they think it's a jobs pool, but actually they're being sent to a camp.
But it's not.
Right, so they're expecting, oh, I'll just leave my post and I'll go and wait in this camp, because the only reason was I was thinking to have an architect, a cryptologist, you know, people who are knowledgeable about different sort of types of, you know, you'd need somebody who knew about machinery, or to contrive a lot of those roles, you'd need to have them come from somewhere.
Yeah, but they don't have to be from the same place. If you look at what happened during the war, you know, with actual concentration camps, they weren't just one group of people from like one town or whatever. They were different races, they were different professions.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that if everybody's from the same company, like as you're suggesting, it's like it's easy to have a revolt. People already know each other. I know in like big corporations you can meet different people from different groups and you don't know who they are. But I like the idea of it not just being that one secular thing, because then you get different people from different plans, from different companies. The fact that if she was in this company and as Rohan mentioned, I built this, I know what it is, then everyone would know that. Everyone wouldn't have that knowledge of who she was or whatever. So I think breaking that away, making it sort of quite, having to cobble together this team of people, you know, a con man or a salesperson even, who can be good with the guards, who can like get some, you know, who can get something into the prison, find something, the handyman or whatever. I mean, I know I'm just making this sound like actually they all probably do work in the same building, but just
no. Well, I was
just
thinking
something
like almost like Borderlands. You have this huge like planet-wide company, and people are plucked from. So not quite from the same office block. I was thinking more like Hyperion or something from Borderlands. But okay, so. How would you differentiate this then? So the idea of the fences, I love. I think that's a really fantastic visual and a great sort of crux for one of these the one type sort of lo-fi sort of oppressive sci-fis, right? But how would you differentiate it from a regular escape movie, and B, a regular sort of something that is actually about real life, like a concentration camp movie? You don't want to be too close to that, because you're not making one of those. How would you differentiate it from those? What's the spark?
Well, the big plan for me was, because I thought actually, I could just make this about a prison. And then I was like, you know what? Prison escape movies are a dime a dozen. Like I think it needs to be something that's a bit more cutting. And, people obviously think badly of that. So I think the way that it needs to differentiate itself is, this is going to sound really awful, but you need to give everybody the glimmer of hope, right? You need to give everybody that she's working this plan. They figured out the fences, the snitch gets stitches or whatever. It's just, like that, the everything is going really, really well. Maybe the escape works off without a hitch. And I think the final fence is either just like a ravine and they can't get out of it, or it's a mass grave. And then they're just like, this is what happens to people like you who try and escape. That's why we build another rung of fences. That's why we do this sort of thing. And
so the last shot is the last fence being built as the camera pans out.
Yeah. And it's just like, that's it. And then it's an interesting allegory for like, instead of fixing something that's broken, just building around it and hoping that solves the problem. Like there's that ideology behind it as well.
I don't want it to be a happy ending, man. I want people to just be like
very existential.
Yeah. So I would suggest this then, because we've never had a short film being pitched, but that strikes me as a very, very good short film. Very good short film. I don't know how you do that.
because you could make it and then actually if it's a short film, you don't have to worry about explaining like about the corporations, about that sort of stuff.
No,
none of that. She's in the camp, maybe someone she knows or something like that gets killed, and then she's like, I fucking cannot be here, I have to escape. I'm a smart person. I know that there are weaknesses. No building is built perfectly. I can find its weaknesses.
You can get away with not having to explain.
Is this a live action, or is it as in with people, or is this an animation?
I'm picturing almost like Animatrix style.
Yeah,
because that's exactly what I'm thinking. I think was it Aeon Flux or something,
or sort of Persepolis, or something that has a very an art style maybe unique to a different country rather than what we're used to seeing. Yeah, exactly, like Aeon Flux, perhaps. Yeah,
and it's that's good, because then you have the sort
maybe.
of
I was for Scanner Darkly.
Yeah, there was. Actually, Rohan, you mentioned it earlier in Love, Sex and Robots. There was one of the guys who was like, it was like an animated, and it was like live action. So it was like hand drawn, but everyone looked like they had their faces painted, sort of like anime style. I can't remember. I mean, all the episodes are different for different people, but something like that, like a very interesting new weird art style. But as a short movie,
very stylized.
Because as a short movie, it'd be great, because they're something bad happens, she needs to escape, and then it's like, soz, no happy ending. Do one. I'll take my Cannes Film Festival or my Sundance Award, and then get.
And then it's interesting you talk about like A Scanner Darkly, because that was a very much a similar kind of. At the end, it closes out, and you're just like, wow, everything's kind of shit. It's so rare to have something that ends with that kind of hammer blow of just like leaving you like, I refuse to give you the payoff that you're waiting for.
Exactly.
And it's funny because talking about crime films, the big one that there's lists of like films where I wanted the bad guy to succeed. There's a film with Gerard Butler, Law Abiding Citizen, where people want him to succeed in the end. They wanted that because of who he is, because he'd just come off of 300. And and that's always found that list. So, but you have that hope throughout the whole thing, and then you realise, oh, actually, hold on a minute, he's actually doing awful things, and the law wins out in the end. But that's not what happens here. It's like your people are oppressed, you've got no chance, and the reason, the next thing that oh god, I just thought something awful. What if like their like body is like used as the foundation of the next fence?
Yeah. I mean, that's actually
that's
probably not too far from the truth in certain
What would
circumstances,
happen,
to be fair. Yeah, thanks, Ryan. I want to say that's a great idea. It's a great pitch.
Thank you. It's a great pitch, but
a terrible,
it was
very sad idea. But that doesn't, I think it's important sometimes to reflect, and also probably a great starting piece for or calling card for a new voice. Maybe an oppressed minority or oppressed people, they might feel something in this. It might be their directorial debut, for a short film.
I think it's one of those films. It's one of those films where people will. It will get into Sundance, and what's that other one that in Spain? Rain Dance. I think it will get into Sundance. Yeah, it will get into Sitges. It will get into Sundance. It will be liked by independent critics, I think, but not by major ones. And I think people will begin to realise the sort of the deeper meaning of how it relates to our day-to-day lives.
I think it's something that would get a reaction either way. Like you'd be guaranteed that it's, I hate using the word polarizing because it's overused, but it's something that you wouldn't be able to leave it unaffected.
So we've had 3 fantastic pitches from Dan, Ryan, and Rohan. Before I pick a winner, I just wanted to... we mentioned in a previous episode and earlier on in this episode that Rohan actually gave us his pitch for Bob Disposal, his own title pitch. And he threw it in our Facebook. And it was quite detailed. It had dialogue. It had... it was a fairly robust pitch, to which I'm grateful for. And of course, it's lost now in the transition from a group to a page on Facebook. But I'm hoping to put it in as a contender for a wild card. So I wondered if we could, with your permission, Rohan, I've got it up here. If I just work through it, and then maybe you can just tell me if it still resonates with you.
Absolutely. I was going to say I can't remember everything I wrote in that Facebook post, so I'm glad you've got it saved there.
Well, I'm hoping to enlist the help of Dan, who is an actor, who can hopefully just setting the bar high, who can hopefully do some of the dialogue in the middle section to this. So, right. So you posted it in March after you listened to Bob Disposal, and this was your pitch back then for your idea for Bob Disposal. It starts. One day, whilst doing his rounds early in the morning, Bob notices a large parcel fall out of one of the bins he's collecting into the back of the garbage truck. Thinking that it's odd for a still wrapped parcel to be thrown out, he fishes it out before turning the crusher on just in case it's something someone threw out accidentally. He sees a letter taped to the paper that reads,
"Greetings, Bob. I knew I could count on you looking out for these people. Never mind that they only consider you good enough to take away their garbage. Well, now you are going to have to save them. This parcel is a bomb, and there are 6 more hidden along your route today, each one more powerful than the last. You're the only one who can stop them all from detonating at midday today. I'm watching you, Bob. If you call the police, I'll detonate the bombs. If you put them anywhere but your truck, I'll detonate the bombs. If you tell anyone else, I'll detonate the bombs. If you can find them all and get them in the truck, you just might be able to save a lot of people, Bob. But ask yourself, would any of them do the same for you?"
Almost paralysed with fear, Bob carefully places the parcel into the back of the truck. Looking around nervously, he walks quickly to the driver's side window and tells his bewildered driver to go home. No questions. Shaken, Bob climbs into the driver's seat, trying to breathe deeply and calm himself. Bob looks at himself in the rearview mirror and says quietly to himself, "It doesn't matter if they do the same for me. What matters is I'll do it for them." Very nice. Rowan.
Quality.
What a great pitch, man.
Great pitch.
I still love it.
Good. It still holds up, does it? Yeah.
Only if Dan plays the bad guy.
Great acting.
Like Kiefer Sutherland on the end of the phone. I'm all good with it. It's great.
Good. It was real good acting, man. I love that. I was like, oh, I'm feeling it all.
Pull off, man. I'm really,
You just got to get close to the microphone. That's all good acting is. Is that how
Is that
works?
what it is? Yeah. Close up to the camera or close up to the microphone, right?
Exactly.
So where would it go from there? We're all dying to know, Rowan. Like,
So, I suppose the way I initially pictured it was almost like Speed. You know, obviously much slower paced. Garbage truck ain't gonna hit 50. But he has that the unseen villain kind of taunting him along the way. But almost that, I don't know if this may be a reference that goes completely over everyone's head because it's very much an Australian one. There was an Australian film called Kenny, and it was about a guy whose business was providing portaloos to events. And he was just this lovable everyman. And what you loved about him was that he had quite literally a shitty job. But he understood that it had a purpose and he wasn't ashamed of it. And I feel like Bob is that same kind of character. Like, yeah, he's a garbage man, but he sees it as like, well, I'm doing this job because no one else wants to do it. And he takes that same approach to getting these bombs. He's like, well, it's just, I'm the one who's got to do it, apparently. And he doesn't concern himself with why him or who this bad guy is. I like that idea of his only concern is, I need to stop this bad thing from happening. And so in a way it's like Speed, but without any of that concern of, oh, who's doing this to me? I need to solve the mystery. Yeah, he's just a simple person with a heart of gold. Again, there's the running theme here of a guy who's in completely over his head, has no idea what he's doing, and kind of bumbles his way to succeeding. And I almost like the idea of him accidentally helping the police solve who this person is, and at the end he's thoroughly surprised to find out they actually caught the guy.
Yeah, that was not even remotely his concern. Yeah.
He's just happy to and like something heartwarming at the end where the people in his neighborhood learn what he did and they become more thankful of Bob. And then when he does his rounds in the morning, they wave to him from the front room or something like that. And Bob does finally feel like he's, a valued member of the community, even though he never really worried about it before.
There's another dimension that is unearthed.
Yeah,
where,
all good feelings. Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, thanks, Rowan. Listen, it's a fantastic idea and a great pitch. I'm really grateful. Thanks for letting us read it out and recall it. We're looking for any pitches on any of the titles you hear. We're under no illusions that we come up with the best ideas. We just throw the title out there and do our best. And we want to hear from you guys at home. We want to hit us up on all of our social media and give us your interpretations or even your disputes. I mean, do you even have a better actor than we've put in? Do you have a better storyline or a better ending? We want to hear from you. So put it in our socials and we'll give you a shout out if we can. So as always, 3 dynamite pitches. I don't have a pitch for Fence this week. I thought it'd be better to focus on everybody else's ideas. I'm not going to come up with one if I haven't already come up with one. And quite frankly, I'm completely amazed. This is what I love about /Dupe. I love that someone will think of Fence immediately as being one thing, and then some person will think of Fence immediately being something else. And then even if it's obvious to one person, that doesn't mean that the idea has to be obvious afterwards either. So, Rowan's pitch initially for a reverse heist movie that starts with a house and ends with nothing, with these lovable plebs navigating the criminal underworld to actually get rid or fence some goods from a super thief played by, obviously, Dame Helen Mirren, who is pulling the strings the entire time. The only choice. What a fantastic interpretation from the title Fence. After we had Dan's pitch, Fence, listen, we've never had an acronym, by the way, a title being broken down to an acronym. And I love an acronym. I'm all for an acronym. that could be the deciding factor for me if it's a good acronym.
As soon as I heard Dan say that, I was kicking myself.
I know, right? It's dying for an acronym.
It was in all caps in the email as well. It was there for me.
It was dying for an acronym, wasn't it? The first, and correct me if I'm wrong, the first English network for crime fighting education. Is that what it was, Dan?
The first English network for crime fighting education. Correct.
Okay. All English heroes. I love that. I love taking different tones, different disparate tones, and seeing these metahumans being contacted by other young people to support other young people and stories about young people. I think that's really, really important. Seeing Britain in the absolute melting pot that it is, the whole sort of north and south, east and west of Britain, and finding all of these disparate non-linear worlds colliding at certain points where different directing styles or art styles or styles of cinema and all these sort of different styles mesh together in, what is unquestionably, for example, what is something amazing about London is that. So if that's, I'm plumbing that to be the place where they all meet is the melting pot of the city, because there is something beautiful about that. I absolutely love that idea. And we had Ryan's idea, taking the darkness of a concentration camp, putting it on the moon or in space, which of course I love, but keeping that darkness in there. So distancing itself from perhaps our current politics or our past politics, but still bringing it much closer to the human experience and the darkness that can sometimes inhabit the human experience. Maybe it's I absolutely adore the imagery of having multiple fences of different kinds, and then when it gets destroyed, a new one is just built around it rather than being patched up. I mean, that's phenomenal imagery. And the idea of it possibly being a short film or possibly being a calling card for a director that needs to express themselves, I think that's really something special. Making a decision is incredibly difficult, and I have made a decision, and I'll just explain why.
All the tension every time.
Need to get greenlit for that sequel.
Yeah. Ryan, I would love to hear at a later date or in any possibility at all, you to express some missing elements or some depth to your idea. Like I'm going to go with Ben Scriven on this, but like I loved the potential in it, but I felt like there's something missing to make it excel past the other two ideas. I think the imagery is fantastic. I think the approach you took was bold, but there's something missing. And I'm happy for maybe people to even pitch, in social media where they think, hang on a minute, Sean, you're wrong. Hashtag Ryan was robbed. I think this is where I'm gonna improve this idea, or rather, sort of support the idea. Which brings me to Dan and Rowan's ideas. This is the trouble. We had Ben on, and he discussed this. He said something quite intelligent and quite gentle. He just said, these intellectual properties are very good. He was very, very complimentary about some of the ideas we were coming up with. He said, you don't always want your best ideas to go through because they rise to more prominence. But I'm going to say this. I'm going to take Dan's idea and Rowan's idea, and I'm going to say, Rowan, I want to make your idea. I actually want to make it. So whilst I think Dan's idea wins, because there's something very powerful in that.
It's a backhanded win again, Sean.
What did I?
Which is basically saying, I like Rowan's better, but because I like Rowan's better, you get to win, is what you're saying. Is that what no. Just to sum up what you just said there.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Rowan, what I genuinely want to do is I want to, with you and with some of the other crew with /Dupe and with some other, maybe even some people at home if they've got some ideas, I want to write Fence. I want to write it, right? I think
you're the actual winner here, Rowan, is that you've walked away with like a script and I've walked away with
you're the indie darling that gets the awards but no one watches.
Exactly.
That's right. Yeah.
I'm the guy who cranked out the same old shit and made millions.
And I walked away with a knife in my back.
Well, in your front, really, let's be honest. Like,
there was no hiding that.
So I just want to say, Rowan, like, I always feel bad when a guest doesn't win, but I mean this with all of my heart. Your idea for Fence is something that can absolutely be made, and it's such a fantastic idea, and it has all the beats in it already. You can just see it fully formed, like the way This Train Terminates came out, or even Bob Disposal. By the end of the pitch, it's a full script. You just have to fill in the details.
I feel like I'm the Michael Bay in this situation. I'm never going to win any awards, but my films come out and they make box office because I put lots of explosions in it. Yeah.
Who cares whether you win awards?
The lowest common denominator movies, yeah.
And so for that, I hoped you would be, Rohan, because I honestly loved your idea. And Dan, you're right. I don't want to be disparaging about your idea. It touched something in me. I thought this is something I've never seen before. Now, whilst it's something that we can't make ourselves at this level, certainly not at present, it touched something in me, and I thought this is the sort of thing that the world needs, and the thing I would love to see.
I'll take that, Sean. Thank you.
So it's not.
This feels like a genuine victory because I was quite proud of that.
The series we need, not the series we deserve.
Exactly.
I'm the movie we deserve.
Exactly.
As the terrible people we are. Whereas yours is the one we need to fix that.
Yeah, exactly. Don't be surprised if you see a Kickstarter, probably for both, but don't be surprised if you see a Kickstarter for Rowan's Fence. Somewhere down the line, audience, you'll see a Kickstarter for this.
Mostly to raise the money to get Dame Helen Mirren in. That's the biggest hurdle to entry, I think we've got.
Yeah. Or someone who looks like her. We'll just take a looky-likey.
Yeah.
So I hope that hasn't upset anyone, because anyone... Listen, the one who gets their film turned into a trailer, we always joke about this, but they're really the loser, because that trailer is going to be like terror brilliant. Whereas, anyone who doesn't go forward, their idea is still valuable. And I've been very clear about this time that I love your idea, Rohan. So thank you for coming on board. Thank you for giving us your Bob Disposal idea. We'd love to have you back at some point, either for the wild card or when we have an episode where we bring the audience's ideas back around. We'd love to have you back if you'd be interested.
Absolutely, yeah, I'd be happy to.
And you've got a Spotify channel, haven't you?
Yeah. So basically, I guess like everyone else, the past few months, I've spent a lot of time cooped up inside. So decided to get back into music production, which is sort of my first love. Recently put out an EP on Spotify. So the artist name that it's under is RAK. That's all as capitals and with the full stops in between the initials. And the EP is called Reconnected. If you see an artwork that is basically a white background with a red-headed guy on it, you've found the place. So if you feel like a bit of a mishmash of musical styles, much like this was a mishmash of movie genres, then it's probably going to be right up your alley.
And I've listened to the EP, and it's really good. And sort of Rohan being in the sort of my friend circle, he was bouncing the tracks off of us, and we were all sort of working together. So it was as much like a good way to get people reconnected, if you will, in during the quarantine.
Yeah,
thanks very much.
So as we mentioned earlier, you can find us at Twitter, at Instagram. We've got a Facebook page, a Reddit community. That's all going to be at /Dupe.
Yeah, we really want you guys to get involved. I've said it a few times in this episode already, but reach out to us anywhere. We're more than happy to chat to you, and we'd love to get you on as well. If you're interested in films and nerd culture, great. But if you just like to throw ideas around, you don't have to be knowledgeable in film too deeply. I mean, every so often, unbeknownst to you, we do pause it and look up a few actors sometimes. We're just here for collaboration.
That goes for you, my mother-in-law. I know you listen to this every time, and I know
you've just really freaked her out. Every
episode, I get a really lovely, really full critique, and it's really wonderful. So maybe we should get her on, because I think she'd have some cracking ideas.
And actually, in the links to each of these episodes, I cultivate a list of the actors in the film. So if you're not much of a film buff and you're not too sure who we're talking about, check out those IMDb lists. They are well put together.
All right. if he does say so himself.
Of course I do.
I'm not averse to having like a mother-in-law special. I'm not averse to having I absolutely adore your child, Dan, and I would be happy to have a child special. If
that would be fantastic, because kids' ideas would be insane.
To be fair, his pitch would be Spider-Man, Iron Man, and Batman and the Flash breaking some Lego and putting it back together again.
Great.
I mean, I would watch that.
That's
Yeah,
basically the
so-
next Lego movie, isn't it?
Yeah, isn't that exactly what Lord and Miller did?
So it just leaves me to thank our guest, Rohan. Rohan, thank you very much for coming on board today
Thanks for having me. Good times.
and sharing your
Absolute
ideas.
pleasure.
Yeah, it was wonderful, man. Thanks a lot. And Dan and Ryan, thank you very much, you two.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sean.
Cheers. Goodbye, everyone.
Recorded in the Capo Studios 2020. What's up, Danger?